This is the X-Zone Radio TV show with Rob McConnell on the X-Zone Broadcast Network and our worldwide family of broadcast affiliates. If you have a question for Rob McConnell or his guest, or if you've had a paranormal experience, call toll-free 1-800-610-7035 extension 0 or email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, our one address is X-Zone Radio TV.
And welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Don't forget, X-Zone Nation, now you can actually call in and listen to the show 7 days, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year at 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080. Exonation, my guest this hour is a good friend. His name is Brad Olsen. And for someone with nearly 2 decades of a career as a travel writer, delving into the wide array of subjects, Brad covers in his new book, Future Esoteric, The Unseen Realms, very controversial topics that most people know nothing about. A topic that those who know about the topics rarely speak about it. And he is going to be joining me this hour. And Brad, always a great pleasure having you with us, and thanks for coming back.
Oh, thank you, Rob. It's always a pleasure to be on your show.
Now, Brad, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to becoming the writer that you are, and to your esoteric views.
Well, I should start by saying when I was a fairly young man, I had the travel lust in me and went about doing a 3-year trip around the world that I self-financed by being an English teacher in Japan, which was the subject of my very first book called World Stompers, which is still in print and still does pretty well. And basically, by having a perspective of traveling around the world for 3 years, I found myself immersed in studying subjects like sacred places, which is also the subject of my series of books, but also getting into deeper forms of religion and spirituality and some of these esoteric subjects that I write about today. And this has given me the basis to explore these topics. And then a couple of years ago, shortly after being on your show, I was thinking about what am I going to do next. I've done these Sacred Places books, 3 of them, 4 in the series, and I just said follow your heart. Do what seems natural to you, and these subjects have immense interest to me. So I started writing them up first in just a little travel journal. Didn't know what the book would be called or anything else, and then everything just came together, and now we have a whole series, and book number 2 is at the printer right now.
The concept of esoterica or esoteria, whatever it's called in the plural, is this a new concept? Is this the result of the New Age movement and the quest of people to find answers that no one seemed to be able to give them or want to give them?
Well, certainly the word esoteric has been around quite a while, and I think it has been seized upon by the New Age culture. But truly, like the mystery schools of the ancient Greeks and the ancient Egyptians go way, way back. And the nature of the term esoteric is that it's sought by a certain few. And as a result, you have to really want it or be a part of a group that studies it. And it's not, the nature of the word is that it's not available or accessible to everyone. That term is called exoteric. That is a term for everybody else. Whereas esoteric are very much similar to the subjects that you cover on your show, Rob. These are the subjects that aren't always believed by the mass audience,
Right.
and takes a little departure from what we know as normal reality to get into them.
Or as my producer Craig likes to say, it takes a lot of prodding.
Absolutely.
All right, you and I have to take our first commercial break. Please stand by. Brad, really great having you back with us. Exonation, Brad Olsen is the author of Future Esoteric, The Unseen Realms. His website is www.bradolsen.com. And also check out cccpublishing.com. Is it publishing or publications, Brad?
Publishing, and that's where all the books can be viewed for free.
Excellent. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break in 2 minutes as the X-Zone continues from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, with Brad Olsen. Once again, the websites to contact Brad, or to find out more about Brad, I should say, and buy his books, cccpublishing.com and bradolsen.com. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Back in Victorian England, a famous theologian posed a perplexing riddle. Why are the two top personalities in the Bible tagged with the numbers 7 and 11? Academics agree the answer is found in the stunning discovery of a hitherto secret Bible structure explained in a new book called The Genesis Grid. The discovery is so simple that preschool children could illustrate it. Certain claims are hugely controversial and may offend some, but at the X-Zone, we've studied this awesome new book and agree with one expert, and I quote, "These discoveries appear to be beyond coincidence." So who or what hid this wonderful pattern in the Bible, and what might they do next? Find out more, X-Zone Nation, and read reviews on www.genesisgrid.co.uk. That's www.genesisgrid.co.uk. Now you can dial in to listen to the X-Zone radio show from anywhere in the world with Rob McConnell 24/7, 365 by dialing 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080. If you have a mobile phone or landline, the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell is now at your beck and call at 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080, 24/7. 365. Brad Olsen is my special guest this hour, Exonation. His websites are www.publishing.com and also bradolsen.com. We're talking to Brad about his new book entitled Future Esoteric, The Unseen Realms. Brad, why do you think so many people today, compared to, let's say, 10 years ago, are getting involved in the world of unseen realms, and that makes your book, Future Esoteric, The Unseen Realms, so popular?
Yeah, it is a zeitgeist of the age type of thing, meaning that right now people are becoming upset with the status quo. Here in America, we have Congress at a record low, something like 5% approval rating. President is dropping. So people are just upset with the way things are going, with the economy, with what they perceive to be as our reality, that we're not getting the big picture. We're not being told what it's all about. And this is what I also call the alternative narrative, that we're all told what our reality is supposed to be by the nightly news, by our education system, by the government. But I propose that there's a reality on top of that, this alternative narrative. And this is what people are tapping into, mostly at their own pace, sometimes with their friends and discussion groups on Facebook, so forth. And this is what is expanding people's horizons when they start discussing some of these subjects.
Tell me, Brad, why do some Western nations make outward attempts at disclosure? Well, the U.S. is as tight-lipped as ever, forcing more and more people to become whistleblowers like Snowden.
Well, certainly America has the king's ransom of secrets, and we can tell that for sure through what Snowden has revealed.
Yeah,
because we have the biggest military budget, we have the biggest military toys around the world and in our stockpiles. So therefore, we would have the most amount to lose by disclosure, because some of these esoteric subjects are regarding backward engineering of technology and recovered craft, so forth, and how that may have made it into our military-industrial complex.
Brad, why is there so much controversy within the scientific community, for example, when it comes to backward engineering? I had Dr. John Brandenburg on the show yesterday, and we were talking about back engineering, and he just laughed it off and said, "Oh, give me a break."
Well, obviously there are some that believe it, some that don't. That's the nature of an esoteric subject, that some will say that everything is predicated on it, and others, like Brandenburg, says nothing is predicated on it. And it's not to decrease the mental capacity of humans. Of course, we're very inventive and curious and can figure a lot of this stuff out ourselves. But part of this alternative narrative, when you include ETs and potentially their craft discs into the equation, then you have more to it.
Let me ask you this question, and I started to get into it the last time you were on the show a couple of weeks ago, but I'd like to kind of bite at this subject. What do you believe is really protected by state secrets, and what ultimately, in your opinion, can be lost?
Well, this is a chapter in the Utopia section that I call the Age of Transparency. And certainly what is lost is our faith in the government, when people start to believe that too much of this is being withheld from us. And basically what could be potentially in the possession of our government is things that come out of a UFO craft, such as anti-gravity technology, such as free energy potential, such as even time travel. And if these things are being sequestered and kept secret and only to a few, what is being lost here? What is the potential of humanity if these inventions, technologies were to be released? And these are subjects that I explore. And it's really not my belief, Rob. I'm trying to just be the messenger here and say, here are these subjects. This is what a lot of people believe. And here is why they believe it.
You know, on past shows, we've talked about free energy. We've talked about Nikola Tesla. We've talked about anti-gravity. And then we talk about the government suppressing these very technologies. And last night during the speech that President Obama gave, State of the Union, he said we need to start breaking away from outside sources for energy and start working on using natural gas more. And so the question I have for you, Brad, and this is this is just your own opinion. I understand that and I respect it. If the government is suppressing free energy, anti-gravity, and other forms of transportation, why would they be promoting now the use or the need to use natural gas, as well as, he's also going full force with solar energy, if this other energy is available, free energy?
Right. Well, the nature of free energy is that it's free.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't put a meter on it, as J.P. Morgan wanted to do with Tesla, and you can't tax it. So, of course, they're going for these alternatives. Now, I have a really good friend who's in the solar industry, and right after the speech, he wrote a big diatribe about solar, and that actually U.S. only uses 0.44 of 1% of our energy is gained through solar. So minor. Whereas countries like Germany are up to 7%.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been in this industry for a long time, so I respect what he has to say. And he said that part of the speech, it just didn't ring true to him. And as far as natural gas, I mean, the way we're deriving that is through this fracking technique, which shows that it can have a very detrimental effect to our drinking water. Yep. So that, too, I question whether that's a very wise move.
So it seems that the bottom line is, if they can't make money on it, they're going to suppress it.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
And that's been true since the age of Tesla, when he said that his Wardenclyffe Tower, this world system that he was going to give to the world, was going to provide free energy. And J.P. Morgan, the financier, says, oh, well, if we can't put a meter on it, we don't want it. And they squashed him like a cockroach.
Wow. Tell me, Brad, what matters most to the cabal and their power base?
Well, certainly energy is the number one industry on the planet. Mm-hmm. So keeping the status quo regarding how we perceive energy production and consumption has to be on the top of their list because it's so profitable. But other things are also very profitable, such as pharmaceutical drugs. Mm-hmm. In my second book, which is at the printer now, called Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses, which I'd love to talk to you about in a future show.
You bet.
Some of the things we talk about in this book are about the future of medicine and some of the medical devices that indeed have been suppressed. So keeping the status quo means not allowing this new technology to supplant it and then make it obsolete. So we really have to look at the motives, just like a good detective,
right,
as to why the powers that be would want to keep this stuff secret.
It also seems that there are those who believe that there has actually been a cure for cancer that has been found, Alzheimer's, Huntington's, and a list of other diseases, that these cures are being suppressed because of big pharma. And once again, we're looking at the bottom line.
Oh, yeah, you got that right. And there was this gentleman named Royal Raymond Rife, who you may have heard of. He came up with a telescope that could see cancer and viruses, and it was able to match the frequency of those cancers and viruses and just explode them out of the body. He was having an incredible success rate with it in the 1930s when the big corporate interest came down on him and basically wiped him out. Similar story to Tesla. And he wasn't able to operate here in America. However, there are Rife machines in other countries such as Mexico, and people still go down there and still have high success rates with them.
We've got about a minute and a half before I have to take my news break, Brad. And I was wondering if you could give me a quick definition on the age of transparency.
Well, this is basically when people's perceptions start to catch up to what is known. I know it's a very subjective subject to speak of, but I do believe that people are just intuitively becoming wiser, and the more that they learn, and let's face it, we all have to have a way to sift through all the information that we're getting. Some of it are dead ends, some of it clearly disinformation. But I think people are getting wiser and are starting to understand this, and are able to find out what really is the truth to themselves. And this is what's really important, that people have to really feel it to know it. And sometimes it doesn't even really matter how much other forces are trying to influence them in one way or another. If you get something, if you really grasp it and you really believe it, that becomes your truth. And it's like a pillar in your life. And it really doesn't matter what other people say to try to distract you or tell you otherwise. If that's your truth and you're sticking with it, then that can carry you through to other subjects. And I think all these things eventually start to build on themselves into what I described as this alternative narrative.
Like Shakespeare said many, many years ago, to thine own self be true.
That's right. I love that quote.
Brad Olsen. We've got to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation Brad Olsen is my special guest this hour. We're talking to Brad about his book, Future Esoteric, The Unseen Realms. It's available at cccpublishing.com, and visit Brad's website at www.bradolsen.com. My name is Rob McConnell. This is The X Zone. Don't go away. Named one of the world's greatest psychics, Elizabeth Joyce is now giving readings worldwide via Skype. Elizabeth Joyce is recognized for her clairvoyant ability to help find missing persons, her analysis of dreams, past life regression work, mediumship, and her accurate predictions. Elizabeth has been a frequent guest on the X Zone radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, now for several years. For an appointment with Elizabeth Joyce, call 201-934-8986 or Skype at elizabeth.joyce. And for more information, you can always visit Elizabeth Joyce online at www.new-visions.com. Now you can dial in to listen to the X Zone radio show from anywhere in the world with Rob McConnell 24/7, 365 by dialing 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080. If you have a mobile phone or landline, the X Zone radio show with Rob McConnell is now at your beck and call at 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080, 24/7, 365. www.cccpublishing.com is where you can find out all about the books that Brad Olsen, our guest this hour, has written. You can always buy them online at that site. And visit Brad's very personal site at www.bradolsen.com. We're talking to Brad this hour about his new book entitled Future Esoteric, The Unseen Realms. And when you're out and about, or you're at book signings, you do the conference and the lecture series, what are some of the questions you get from people that have come to see you or that visit you at your site and send you emails?
Yeah, a lot of people are curious about how I collect this information and how I put it together in these series of books now. That there's 2 coming out. There is quite a bit of information. I mean, each book is over 100,000 words.
Wow.
And people just are curious as to how I came about this information and then went about putting it together in the way that I did. And I just tell them I've had a curiosity about these subjects pretty much my whole life. And one subject often leads to another, so it's kind of domino effect, you could say, that these subjects all kind of link up and then cascade together into one giant narrative.
In your opinion, is time travel possible?
In my opinion, it is. And I think it's also in Einstein's opinion that it is, too. If you look deeply at some of his theorems, getting up to the speed of light, one becomes more of energy than it is matter. And at that point, it would be possible to move back and forth along the timeline. And if this were the case, I mean, what a game changer this would be.
Mm-hmm.
Then we may be dealing with time travelers in our reality, or the potential of us being time-space astronauts and going to other timelines, either past or forward.
But wouldn't there also be a danger of changing the present if we went back in time and inadvertently changed a very important element within that timeline? And if the time that was gone back to in the past would be actually changed, what would happen to the future? Would we exist?
That's a great question, and I put it in a chapter called Time and Space in Future Esoteric because it is such a profound question. And there's always this example, what if we were to go back in time and kill our grandfather?
Right.
How could we possibly exist?
Right.
And the answer to that is you could go back in time and kill your grandfather. However, you would not be able to leave that timeline. And therefore, you would always be stuck in, say, the 19th century whenever that event occurred, because, of course, in the future, you wouldn't be able to exist at that time. That's my understanding of it. Of course, I don't have firsthand experience as some of the people like Andrew Basiago, who is part of Project Pegasus, and he claims to have been even back at the Gettysburg Address and other historical events.
If these people do go back in time, do they go back in their physical being, or do they go back as a transparency or a ghost figure?
No, I think they do go back as their physical selves, and they interact in that manner. However, and I've listened to Andrew Basiago and Martinez, some other people who were part of Project Pegasus quite extensively, and I'm really fascinated by what they have to say.
Let's say you or I were to be able to go back into the past. I would bring my cell phone. And would I be able to take pictures of the past, prove these pictures were from the past, and bring them to the future?
That's a question I don't know. When these guys talk about traveling in time, or even teleport transportation to Mars and so forth, they speak of this room called the jump room. And basically, they have to go into it close to naked. In fact, sometimes they can't even wear shoes. So this is just according to Andrew Basiago, since you asked.
Yeah.
Which case I don't think you could bring a camera. And he says oftentimes he would show up, such as Gettysburg. Now this guy claims he was in that famous photo of Lincoln starting to sit down in a crowd scene. He's a little kid with these giant shoes in the foreground, and says he had to pick up some dead soldiers' shoes, and that's why they're so oversized, just to walk around on that cold day.
Why would he come back? Why would he be put into the past as a child?
Well, I guess they were testing whether or not this technology would be viable to perhaps alter historical events to their favor. Another example they gave was going back and talking to Washington and telling him, you have to cross the Delaware River on this night, or else the British are going to catch you by surprise. So they were setting up the circumstances to create this nation and give Washington an advantage when he was certainly disadvantaged. These are just their stories.
Right.
But there is a certain group of people who believe in this as an esoteric subject, which I feel compelled to have to cover. So I don't necessarily always believe these things, but I follow them for the sake of research.
Tell me, during the research for your book, Future Esoteric, was there anything that just blew the socks off you?
Sure. Well, I think a lot of the concepts in the latter part of the book, in the Utopia section, when I try to leave on a very positive note, really made an impression on me. And one of those is the concept of the end of money, and the whole idea that we really do not need money, and that it really is just an illusionary construct that's set up to keep the human race enslaved.
Boy, I wish my wife would understand that.
Could save you and me a lot of problems.
Oh, isn't that the truth? And every other man listening around the world. I was wondering if you could describe the holographic yellow cube that apparently can interface with the human mind.
Yeah, this again is one of the most fascinating subjects out of UFOlogy, and that is this 1964 technology transfer with the U.S. government with the gray aliens. They demonstrated to the generals who were assembled that day this yellow cube technology, which was basically a holographic generator which interfaces with the human mind. Mm-hmm. And boy, if this technology was ever released, talk about the next killer app. Because with it, you would be able to access your own past lives and see them and know them on a very interpersonal level, but also look at every historical event that's ever happened. So it would be the end of conspiracy theory. We would just know the true answer to every single historical event that's ever happened. So basically, they demonstrated this device to the assembled generals, Holloman Airfield in '64, and said, well, what event is it that you want to see? And they were all very pious Christians and wanted to see the Passion Play of Christ. So they queued it up and played the whole event. And apparently Jesus Christ really was a human, and he did die in that horrific fashion. And this utterly blew away the generals. And they accepted this technology, and it took them many years, according to the legend surrounding this, until about 1972, were they then able to use it to look at events and also project future possibilities. And the future is nothing but a set of probabilities. Mm-hmm. So they were looking at these, what they call the timelines, timeline 1 and timeline 2. And timeline 1 is the human race achieving the golden age, coming into this time when we have peace and prosperity for all, whereas timeline 2 was World War III, the planet is destroyed, the human race is knocked down to the Stone Age, basically, and it's a horrible outcome. But paradoxically, these generals and the powers that be were more interested in timeline 2 than they were in humans waking up into this golden age. And so they were trying to manipulate the timelines to have that happen. And what seems to be occurring today with the saber rattling around Iran and stopping their propensity for a nuclear bomb seems to be going along these lines of this great World War III beginning in the Middle East and then basically spreading around the world from there.
Exonation, Brad Olsen is our special guest this hour. We're talking to Brad about his new book that's out, and it's a great book. I highly recommend it. It's entitled Future Esoteric, The Unseen Realms. Now, if you'd like to get a copy of Future Esoteric, The Unseen Realms, or any of the other books that Brad has written, here's the website, www.cccpublishing.com, and Brad's website is www.bradolsen.com. You know, Brad, I was reading an article yesterday in the Daily Mail, and I'll just paraphrase the title of the article. It was entitled, "How Can a Country Handle a Nuclear Bomb or Nuclear Power and Still Allow Stoning of Women to Happen?" Just makes you just makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Last time you were on there, we were talking about the crop circle that appeared in California. And I was wondering if there was any update to that, because all of a sudden, bang, it's out of the news.
Oh, well, it was pretty much revealed that it was a hoax, that it was basically put on by a bunch of guys who had some kind of microchip here in Silicon Valley, and they wanted to create a PR stir. So they went out there and they built that thing in the middle of the night and let the conspiracy theorists run with it and got the publicity that they sought, and then came out and said, no, we're just hoaxing it for publicity for this new microchip that we're developing.
So how would people best tell the difference between a real crop circle and a hoaxed crop circle?
Well, the evidence really for that is in the stalk of the plants itself, whereas these authentic ones are never broken, which kind of defy gravity as far as somebody with a plank walking across a field and pressing down the plants to create a formation. Whereas in these authentic ones, all these very strange things occur, such as the stalks themselves are not broken but intertwined, and if left alone, they'll just grow back and even be more productive with the seeds that they produce than before. The other things are magnets or compasses will spin out of control. If a plane flies over a freshly laid crop circle, it'll have its instruments temporarily go down. So there's all these anomalous features with the authentic ones, mostly occurring in England, that really have researchers baffled. And now another thing that's coming out with them is that they have this 3D kind of appearance, that not only is the stalks of the plants laid down, but they also have 3D modeling computers now that will analyze these crop circles and then find additional dimensions of what these coded messages are all about, and actually show some of these patterns in more of a 3D mode. So there's like foreshadowing and shading to them, and even sometimes like hidden additional messages within them.
What is the latest theory on the creation of crop circles? Is it an extraterrestrial message? Is it a message from within the center of the earth? What's the theories out there?
I don't know if they can really pinpoint what the theory are, but what they do see is that the patterns often reflect patterns that have occurred here in the world. Some are Egyptian patterns, some are Tibetan, some are even like Eskimo patterns. And that's awfully curious. Are they just reflecting our human mind and mythos? Or is there something more in these patterns that they're trying to express to us? So it's really hard to say what they're trying to get across here, because sometimes it's our own imagery that they are projecting.
Some of the crop circles are truly fascinating. I look at the pictures of them and I say, wow. And when a crop circle is hoaxed, I would imagine it does damage to anyone else who may want to report a crop circle, and people start doubting the actual validity of the crop circle that's being talked about.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
And there's that one crop circle that was enormous. It was about 200 circles. It's called the Milk Hill Galaxy Crop Circle, which appeared on August 13, 2001. It is so huge, it's over 2 football fields long. And there is a group in England right now that is offering a ransom, a bounty of, I think it's 100,000 English pounds, if anybody can replicate the Milk Hill Galaxy.
Brad, we've got to go for our final break. Please stand by. My name is Rob McConnell. Brad Olsen and I return on the other side of this break. Don't go.
I'm William S. Peckham. If you enjoy a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love my novel, From Out of the Woodwork. It's the story of a young Toronto contractor, Sean Kennedy, who buys derelict homes, guts them, and turns them into multifamily dwellings. Slums just waiting to happen. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, the house fights back. Former owners unexpectedly come out of the woodwork as he starts the destruction. The apparitions come to him when he touches old books, reads hidden letters, rummages through old boxes, finds a locket, or reads a discovered manuscript of a murder mystery. From Out of the Woodwork will take you from 1899 to the horror of the World Trade Center, September 11, 2001. Check out From Out of the Woodwork on my website, www.williamspeckham.com.
The new nonfiction book, Razor of Madness, is similar to cult movies like Clockwork Orange, Dragon's Tattoo, or The Other Side of Hell. Wayne Morin Jr. and Thomas Lee Howe will expose widespread and systematic deficiencies in this thought-provoking tell-all novel. Mind control rages among scholars in law schools. Human rights are ignored while thought reform and mental manipulation are accepted practices used as behavior modification. Dr. Louis Jolyon West comes to mind. Media and public scrutiny shows that United States mental hospitals are in fact destructive murder industries. Razor of Madness expose novel details this epidemic through an in-depth professional and personal investigation. For decades there has been a revolving door policy that still releases killers and pedophiles back into society. The maestro of mind control continues to haunt America to this very day. Razor of Madness is available in paperback or as a downloadable ebook at Amazon.com. If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multifamily dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com. Welcome back, everyone. By the way, all of our shows are now available on YouTube, Boxy, Zune, Blueberry, our website, xzoneradiotv.com. iTunes carries us, Apple iTunes, and then you've got the TuneIn, the internet radio stations that also carry us. So no matter where you are, no matter how you want to listen to the show, whether it's on the internet, from your cell phone, or by calling 1-800-1201. That's not the right number, Craig. My gosh. I drew a blank here. 201-401-0080. You can listen to us 724 365 from your mobile phone or your regular phone. Brad Olsen's our special guest, www.cccpublishing.com and bradolsen.com. We're talking to Brad this hour about his new book, Future Esoteric, The Unseen Realms. First of all, always great having you with us, my friend. And here's a hypothetical question for you. Do you think the day will ever come when we will actually see free energy, free for the human race?
Well, I sure hope so, and I think it's something that its time has come. It really should have happened 100 years ago with Tesla. So really, the only thing that's holding it back are these roadblocks to keep energy the most profitable industry on the planet. If we can ever surmount that, perhaps we'll have the opportunity to introduce this kind of technology. And my understanding is there are several countries who are ready to roll it out, such as China and Japan, who China is choking on their coal-driven plants, polluting their air. Japan really has no natural resources, and even I've just heard recently Iran would like to start doing this. But that's what's at stake, is that the petrodollar is still king, and this whole industry would like to keep it status quo.
Interesting. One final question for you, my friend, then we have to say so long for today. Is there a way to defeat the cabal?
Yeah, truth, consciousness. My tagline for the new book, Modern Esoteric, is the revolution is consciousness. And it's people waking up, and we're seeing it all around the world, including, all the Arab Spring and all these riots going on now in Ukraine. People just don't like it the way it's being presented, and they're looking for alternatives to define the world that we live in.
I often wonder, watching the news with all the problems in the Ukraine, with the problems reoccurring in Egypt, the bombings, is it possible that there are countries, there are people who cannot handle freedom, democracy?
Well, I think everybody can handle freedom and democracy. It's whether or not you're going to go about violently enforcing that change, or what I would recommend is a nonviolent approach, and that is the revolution being consciousness of the mind, expanding the mind. The truth will set you free. And if people start to really grasp these more advanced concepts, I think then they will enforce change. And maybe it'll start at a very grassroots level with our local politicians, our city mayors, and then trickle up to the very top levels of government where they'll have to make a change. People were going to demand it.
As always, Brad, time goes by so fast when you're with us. Look forward to having you back in a couple of weeks. So until then, my friend, take care of yourself, and thanks very much for coming on the show, and congratulations on your new book.
Thank you, Rob. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
You take care now. Exonation, www.cccpublishing.com is where you can buy your copy of Future Esoteric, The Unseen Realms, and Brad's website is bradolsen.com. And I'll be back on the other side of the news at 6:30 past the hour. Don't go away.